Once upon a time, in the ancient city of Benin, where history lived in every street corner and the walls seemed to whisper stories of kings and warriors, there lived a young couple that everybody called the perfect pair. The husband's name was Osaz. Osaz was a man of 32 years, tall like an Iroko tree and handsome like a Nollywood actor. His skin was smooth and dark like fresh crude oil, and when he smiled, his teeth were so white they could blind you like a camera flash. He worked as an architect, the kind that designed those big beautiful houses that made poor people stop and stare with their mouths hanging open like broken gates. His wife was called Adesua, but not just any Adesua, because she was a feminist who believed in keeping her father's name even after marriage. This woman, let me tell you about her. She was beautiful like sunrise, with skin the color of caramel and eyes that sparkled like diamonds in sunlight. She was a pharmacist, owning her own small pharmacy in the ring road called Healthy Life Pharmacy. Her business was doing well. It was not making millions, but it was enough for them to eat 3 square meals and still travel to Ghana for vacation once a year. They had been married for 3 years, and in those 3 years, they had produced one child, a little girl called Ehi, who was 2 years old and had the biggest, roundest eyes you ever saw. That child's eyes were so round that when she stared at you, you would feel like she was looking into your soul and reading all your secrets. Now, Osaz and Adesua lived in a modest 3-bedroom flat in Ubowo area. Nothing too fancy, but it was theirs. Well, they were still paying the rent, but in their minds, it was theirs. The house had everything they needed. A small living room with a TV that actually worked without needing to be beaten. A kitchen where Adesua cooked meals that made neighbors jealous. And bedrooms with beds that didn't make sounds when you turned over at night. Life was sweet and balanced. Life was like a well-cooked plate of pounded yam and egusi soup. Everything in the right proportion. Everything was flowing smoothly. But you know what the elders say, Abi? The cricket that dances on the road must have a drummer hiding in the bush. And when the lizard is nodding its head, it's not greeting you. There's a drummer somewhere playing his song. Something was about to happen that would turn their sweet lives into something bitter like unripe lemon. The trouble started on a Thursday afternoon in October, the kind of afternoon where the sun was hiding behind clouds and the air smelled like rain was coming but not yet ready to fall. Osaz came home early that day, around 4 p.m, with a face that looked like someone who had swallowed sand mixed with stones. "Baby," he called out to Adesua, his voice heavy like someone carrying cement on their head. "My mother is coming to stay with us." Adesua was frying plantain in the kitchen. When she heard those words, the spatula nearly fell from her hand. Her heart jumped like a frog escaping from a snake. "Your mother coming to stay? For how long?" Osaz scratched his head, the way men do when they know they are about to deliver bad news, but they don't know how to package it nicely. "Well, she says she wants to help with Ehi, so you can focus on your pharmacy business. She says she's getting old and she wants to spend time with her grandchild before she dies." "Before she dies?" Adesua's voice was rising like bread in the oven. "Your mother is only 58 years old. She's not dying. She runs a farm in the village and chases goats like a teenager. What do you mean before she dies?" "Baby, please." Osaz was now using a soft voice, the type that men use when they know that they are already losing an argument, but they still want to try. "It's just for a few months. 3 months maximum. She will help with Ehi, do some cooking, and then she will go back to the village. Please, she's my mother." Adesua wanted to say no. She wanted to say it loud and clear. But she knew that having a mother-in-law in your house was like having a time bomb in your kitchen. You don't know when it will explode, but you know it will explode. But how could she say no? This was Osaz's mother. If she refused, she would be labeled the bad wife who doesn't respect elders, the modern woman who has no home training, the witch who wants to separate son from mother. So she swallowed her objection like bitter medicine and said, "Okay, but 3 months only. After 3 months, she goes back." "Thank you, baby. You are the best." Osaz hugged her so tight that the fried plantain she was holding nearly fell into the oil. 2 days later, Mama arrived. Let me describe Osaz's mother to you properly so you can picture her clearly in your mind. She was a short woman, very short. The kind of short that made you wonder if she was compressed in a machine when she was young. But what she lacked in height, she made up for in width. The woman was round. Round like a ball. Round like a drum. Round like those big pots they used to cook jollof rice for weddings. Her skin was dark and wrinkled like dry meat. She had tribal marks on both cheeks, 3 lines on each side that made her look traditional and scary at the same time. Her eyes were small and sharp like needles. They moved around constantly, observing everything, judging everything, recording everything like a CCTV camera that never sleeps. When she arrived that Saturday morning, she came with 3 big Ghana must go bags filled with her belongings. 3 for someone who was supposedly staying for only 3 months. "My daughter!" she called out to Adesua, spreading her arms wide like she wanted to hug the whole world. "My beautiful daughter, see how you're glowing. Marriage is sweet, Abi. Thank God my son married a good woman. Not like those useless girls of nowadays who don't know how to cook or clean or respect their husband." Adesua forced a smile and hugged her mother-in-law. The woman smelled like a mixture of camphor, native soap and something else. Adesua couldn't identify, something that made her nose want to close shop. "Welcome, ma. We're happy to have you," Adesua lied through her teeth. Mama settled into the spare bedroom like she had lived there all her life. Within 2 hours, she had rearranged the entire room, complained about the mattress being too soft. She said it would give her back pain, requested for a local mat to sleep on instead, and asked why there was no picture of Osaz's late father on the wall. Adesua and Osaz exchanged glances. The look that married couples share when they realize they have made a terrible mistake, but it is too late to undo it. The first month was not entirely terrible. Mama woke up at 5 a.m. every morning, making enough noise to wake up the entire neighborhood. Swept the compound until every single leaf had been relocated. She cooked breakfast before anyone else was awake. Her cooking, chai, that woman could cook. Her banga soup was so sweet, it could make a dead man wake up and ask for second helping. Her eba was smooth like butter. Her pepper soup was hot enough to wake up all your sleeping ancestors. She took care of little Ehi with the dedication of a soldier guarding the president. She bathed her, fed her, played with her, sang to her. Ehi was so attached to grandma that she started calling her grandma instead of mama. This one pained Adesua small, but she swallowed it. At least she could focus on her pharmacy business now. But slowly, like darkness creeping in at sunset, things started changing. Mama started making small comments. Small comments that seemed innocent but were actually sharp like razor blade hidden in soap. "Adesua, why do you fry your plantain like this? This is not how we do it in our family. Let me show you the proper way. Adesua, why do you iron Osa's shirt like this? The collar is not straight. A good wife should iron her husband's clothes properly. Adesua, why are you still sleeping at 6:30 a.m? In my time, wives woke up at 4 a.m. to prepare for their husbands. But I know, you modern women, you are different and independent. You don't have time for home duties." Every sentence was like a small needle pricking Adesua's skin. 1 needle you can manage, 2 you can endure, but when someone is pricking you with multiple needles every day, eventually your whole body becomes sore. And Osaz, that man was blind like a bat in daylight. Whenever Adesua tried to complain, he would say, "Baby, she's just trying to help. She means well. Don't take it personally." "Don't take it personally?" Adesua almost wanted to scream. "She's basically saying I'm a terrible wife." "She's not saying that. She's just old-fashioned. You know how our mothers are." But it got worse, much worse. By the second month, Mama had stopped being subtle. She was now openly criticizing everything Adesua did. "This food is too salty. Osaz, you see what your wife is feeding you? She's trying to kill you with salt. This house is dirty. Adesua, when was the last time you cleaned under the bed? You pharmacist, you put no book but you don't know how to keep a home. Osaz, you are looking thin. Your wife is not feeding you well. Come, let me prepare proper food for you. And the most painful one, Ehi is sick again. What kind of mother doesn't know how to care for her own child? Thank God I came here. Adesua was boiling inside like water in a kettle. But every time she tried to respond, Mama would smile sweetly and say, "My daughter, I'm not criticizing you. I'm just helping you. After all, you are like my own daughter. I love you." Love? Love? This was not love. It was torture disguised as care. But what was even more painful was that Osaz was changing. Slowly, gradually, like metal rusting, he was beginning to agree with his mother. "Baby, maybe you should wake up earlier, just to avoid Mama's comments. Baby, maybe you should let Mama handle the cooking. Her food is really good. Baby, maybe you're working too hard at the pharmacy. Maybe you should take a break and focus more on home." Adesua felt like she was losing her husband, like Mama was slowly pulling him away from her, trade by trade, until one day he would completely be on his mother's side and Adesua would be a stranger in her own home. It was on a Tuesday evening in the 3rd month that Adesua discovered the truth, and the truth was more evil than she could have ever imagined. She came home early from the pharmacy, around 4 p.m, because she was not feeling well. Her head was pounding like someone was hitting it with a hammer, and her stomach was upset like she had eaten something bad. When she entered the house, she heard voices coming from the kitchen. Mama was talking to someone on the phone. Her voice was low, but Adesua could hear it clearly from the corridor. Yes, the plan is working perfectly," Mama was saying in a Edo language. "The girl is breaking down. I can see it in her eyes. Very soon, she will make a mistake, a big mistake, and Osaz will see her true character." Adesua froze like ice. Her whole body became still. What plan? What was Mama talking about? She moved closer to the kitchen door, careful not to make any noise. Her heart was beating like a talking drum in her chest. "I've been putting small amounts of bitter leaf extract in her food," Mama continued. "Not enough to make her seriously sick, but enough to make her feel weak, tired, irritable. She would think it is stress from work, but it is me. I'm weakening her slowly." Adesua's hand flew to her mouth to stop herself from gasping. Bitter leaf extracts? Mama was poisoning her? And I've been turning Osaz against her, small, planting seeds of doubt here and there. "Your wife does not respect you. Your wife is too independent. Your wife is not like the wives of our time. Soon, he will be completely mine again, and that girl will either fall in line or I'll drive her out of this house." The voice at the other end of the line said something that Adesua did not hear. Mama laughed, a wicked cold laugh that made Adesua's skin crawl like she has seen a ghost. "Why am I doing this? Because that girl thinks she owns my son. She thinks because she married him, he belongs to her. But Osaz is my son. I carried him in my womb for 9 months. I suffered to train him. No woman will come and take him from me. I will destroy her slowly until she becomes so miserable that she will either become my slave or she will leave. Either way, I will still win." Adesua felt like someone had poured ice water into her veins. Her mother-in-law was not here to help. She was here to destroy. All the kindness and cooking, all the help with Ehi was all part of the plan. A wicked calculated plan to break Adesua and take control of Osaz. But Adesua was not just angry, she was smart. She had quietly taken out her phone and started recording the conversation. That evening, when Osaz came home from work, Adesua was waiting for him in their bedroom. Her face was calm, but her eyes were like fire ready to burn down a forest. "Osaz, I need to show you something, and after you see it, you will make a choice, me or your mother. You cannot have both." Osaz's face showed confusion, like someone who had entered the wrong classroom. "Baby, what are you talking about? Why are you being dramatic?" "Just watch," Adesua said, pressing play on her phone. Mama's voice filled the room. "I've been putting small amounts of bitter leaf extract in her food. I'm weakening her slowly. I will destroy her slowly." As Osaz listened, His face went through about 10 different emotions: confusion, shock, disbelief, horror, anger. By the time the recording finished, he looked like someone who had just seen his mother turn into a demon before their own eyes. "No," he whispered, his voice shaking. "No, this cannot be my mother. This must be fake. You edited this recording." "Edited? You think I will fabricate such a thing? Your mother has been poisoning me, Osaz. She has been manipulating you and is planning to destroy our marriage, and you want to talk about editing?" Maybe there's an explanation. Maybe she was just joking." "Yes, joking about poisoning your wife." Before Osaz could respond, the bedroom door burst open. Mama stood there, and the look on her face told them that she had been listening to their conversation, and she was not even trying to deny it anymore. "So," she said, her voice cold like ice from a deep freezer, "you found out? Good. I'm tired of pretending anyway." She walked into the room like she owned it. Her small frame somehow looked bigger, more threatening. "Yes, I was planning to break you," she spat at Adesua. "Yes, I was poisoning your food. Not to kill you, I'm not a murderer. Just to make you weak, sick, miserable. I wanted you to suffer." "Mama," Osa's voice was filled with horror. "How could you? She's my wife, the mother of your grandchild." "Wife!" Mama screamed, her voice waking up little Ehi, that she started crying in the other room. "She's an intruder, a thief. She came and stole my son from me. Before her, Osas used to call me every day, visit me every weekend, send me money without me asking. But after he married this pharmacist, everything changed. Now I have to beg for attention. I have to wait for him to remember I exist. She did this." Tears were flowing from the old woman's face now, mixing with the tribal marks on her cheeks. But those were not remorse, they were tears of rage and jealousy. "So yes, I came here to take back what's mine, to remind my son who bettered him, who suffered for him, who deserves his loyalty more than any woman he married. I will not apologize. I will not." Adesua was shaking with anger and pain, but she managed to speak, her voice strong like iron. "You are sick. You need help. You don't love your son. You want to own him like property. Real love doesn't destroy. Real love doesn't poison. Real love doesn't manipulate." "What do you know about love?" Mama lunged forward like she wanted to attack Adesua, but Osas jumped between them. "Enough!" Osas' voice like a thunder. "Mama, pack your things. You are leaving tonight. Now!" You are choosing her over me. Your own mother. You chose this, Mama. You chose to be evil. You chose to harm the woman I love. You chose to betray my trust. You made your own choice. Now I am making mine. Leave, Mama." For a moment, Mama stood there looking at her son like she was seeing him for the first time. Then her face twisted into something ugly, something that would give children nightmares. "You will regret this," she hissed. "Both of you. You think you've won. You've won nothing. I caused this marriage. I caused this house. You will never know peace. Never." She stormed out of the room, packed her 3 Ghana must-go bags in record time, and left the house screaming curses in Igbo language that were so terrible that even neighbors came out to see what was happening. As her taxi drove away in the night, Adesua collapsed into Osa's arms, crying like she had been holding back an ocean of tears for 3 months. The weeks that followed were not easy. Osas was devastated, dealing with the reality that his own mother tried to destroy his marriage. He went for therapy. They both went for couple counseling. They had to rebuild trust that Mama had almost completely destroyed. Adesua went to the hospital and confirmed that yes, she had been ingesting small amounts of bitter leaf extract, which had been making her weak and sick. The doctor said it was not enough to cause permanent damage, but in another few months, it could have been serious. They changed all the locks in the house. They blocked Mama's number. They told family members what had happened, and while some believed them, others said they were lying, that they had poisoned Osaz's mind against his mother. 6 months later, Mama tried to come back, claiming she had changed, that she was sorry, but Osaz stood firm like a rock in the middle of a raging river. "Mama, I love you because you are my mother, but I cannot let you near my family. Not now, maybe not ever. You need to heal yourself first. Until then, please stay away." The moral lesson of this story reminds us that mother-in-law's love should add to a marriage, not subtract from it. Real love builds, it doesn't destroy. When someone claims to love you, but they are actually poisoning your peace, your health, your relationships, run. Even if that person is family, even if that person is a parent, even if society says you should endure. A man must leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife. This doesn't mean abandoning your parents, but it means your spouse comes first. Your loyalty, your primary allegiance belongs to the family you are building, not the one you came from. And to all the mother-in-laws listening, your son's wife is not your competition. She's your partner in loving him. Don't let jealousy turn you into the villain of your own son's story. If you deliver that child inside your womb, you're going to die. The child within you is your death. The little voice echoed in Sonia's mind as she stared at the positive pregnancy test trembling in her hands. Those words had come to her in a dream 3 nights ago, and she hadn't been able to shake them off since. Once upon a time, in the quiet suburbs of the riverside, there lived a woman named Sonia Turner, who had been married to her husband Fred for 10 long years without conceiving a child. They had tried everything: fertility specialists, hormone treatments, dietary changes, and even alternative medicine. Every doctor they consulted confirmed the same frustrating truth. Both of them were perfectly healthy. There was no medical reason why they couldn't have children. The years of waiting had taken their toll on them. Sonia had stopped attending baby showers. She avoided the park where mothers pushed strollers. She had learned to smile politely when people asked, "So when are you two going to start a family?" as if it was a simple choice they were deliberately avoiding. Fred tried to stay positive, but Sonia could see the disappointment in his eyes every month when her period came. His mother, Patricia, was less subtle about her feelings. She made pointed comments about continuing the family line and often suggested that perhaps Fred should have married someone else, someone more capable. Then, after a decade of negative tests and dashed hopes, something changed. Sonia missed her period. At first, she thought it was stress or perhaps the beginning of early menopause. She was 35 now after all. But when the nausea started and her breasts became tender, she allowed herself a tiny spark of hope. She didn't tell Fred immediately. She couldn't bear to see his disappointment if it turned out to be nothing. Instead, she went to the pharmacy alone, bought 3 different pregnancy test strips and took them all into the bathroom of a coffee shop, too anxious to wait until she got home. All 3 of them showed positive. Sonia sat on the closed toilet seat, staring at the tests lined up on the sink, and cried. They were supposed to be tears of joy, but something felt wrong. The happiness she had imagined feeling for 10 years wasn't there. Instead, there was a cold knot of dread in her stomach. That night, she dreamt of the little boy for the first time. He couldn't have been more than 6 or 7 years old, with dark hair and enormous brown eyes. He stood in a field of dead flowers, and when he saw Sonia, his expression was filled with sorrow. "Please," he said, his voice small and desperate. "You have to listen to me." "Who are you?" Sonia asked, looking around the dying landscape. "That doesn't matter. What matters is the baby." He pointed at her stomach. "If you deliver that child inside your womb, you're going to die. The child within you is your death." Sonia tried to move towards him to ask him what he meant, but her feet were stuck to the ground. "I don't understand. Why would my baby kill me?" "It's not a normal pregnancy," the boy said, backing away. "Something is very wrong. You need to find out what your husband did. Ask him about Marcus Green." "Wait!" Sonia called out, but the boy turned and ran, disappearing into the withered flowers. She woke up gasping. Her nightgown was soaked in sweat. Fred was snoring softly beside her, completely unaware of her distress. Sonia got up and went to the bathroom, splashing cold water on her face. It was just a dream, she told herself. Just anxiety about finally being pregnant after all these years. But the name lingered in her mind, Marcus Green. The next morning, Sonia made Fred breakfast and finally told him about the pregnancy tests. His reaction was everything she had hoped for over the years. He swept her into his arms, laughing and crying at the same time, calling her treasure and telling her how much he loved her. "We have to call Dr. Morrison and schedule an appointment right away," Fred said, already reaching for his phone. "And we should tell my mother." "No," Sonia said sharply, then softening her tone. "Let's wait until we see the doctor and confirm everything. I don't want to get everyone's hope up for nothing." Fred agreed, though he looked disappointed. He was clearly bursting to share the news. At the doctor's office 2 days later, Dr. Elizabeth Morrison performed a thorough examination and confirmed what the tests had shown. Sonia was approximately 6 weeks pregnant and everything appeared normal. "I know this has been a long journey for you both," Dr. Morrison said with a warm smile, "but congratulations, you are going to be parents." Fred squeezed Sonia's hand, but she couldn't quite return his enthusiasm. The dream still haunted her and she needed answers. That evening, after Fred went to bed, Sonia opened his laptop. She felt guilty about snooping, but she had to know who was Marcus Green and why had the boy in her dream told her to ask Fred about him. She started with Fred's email, searching for the name Marcus. Nothing came up. She tried his document folder, then his browser history. Still nothing. Finally, she opened his contact list on his phone, which was synced to the laptop. There it was, Marcus Green. The contact had no photo, just a phone number and a single note: "Do not call unless absolutely necessary." Sonia's heart raced. Why would Fred have a contact saved with such an ominous warning? She grabbed her own phone and dialed the number before she could talk herself out of it. It rang 4 times before a man answered. His voice was smooth, almost pleasant, but there was something cold underneath it. Well, the man said, "This is unexpected. You must be Sonia." "How do you know my name?" Sonia whispered, glancing towards the bedroom to make sure Fred hadn't woken up. "Because I've been expecting this call, just not from you. I assume you are pregnant now." The way he said it casually made Sonia's blood run cold. "Who are you? And what do you have to do with my husband?" "I am Marcus Green, and 10 years ago, your husband came to me with a problem. You couldn't get pregnant and he was desperate. I provided a solution." "What kind of solution?" Sonia demanded. "The kind that always works," Marcus said, "but every solution comes with a cost. Your husband signed a contract. Did he never tell you about it?" "A contract for what?" "For a child. But the child requires payment, Sonia. The price for this pregnancy is your life. When you deliver the baby, you die. That's the agreement." Sonia dropped the phone, her hands shaking so violently she could barely hold it. She picked it up again, her voice barely audible. "You are lying. You have to be lying." "Am I? Then why did you call me? Why have you been having dreams warning you about exactly this?" Marcus chuckled softly. "Your husband made a deal he didn't understand. Or perhaps he understood perfectly well and simply didn't care. You'd have to ask him." There has to be a way to break it," Sonia said desperately. "There has to be something we can do." "There might be," Marcus said slowly, "but it would require your husband to admit what he did, to face the consequences of his choices, and based on my experience with desperate people, that is not likely to happen. Most people would rather let others pay for their mistakes." "Good luck, Sonia. You're going to need it." The line went dead. Sonia sat in the dark living room for hours, her mind racing. Could it be true? Would Fred really have made some kind of dark deal without telling her? It seemed impossible. Fred was a good man, kind and loving. But then again, she had seen how desperate he was for a child,
how the years of failure had worn him down. She finally went to bed around 3 in the morning, but she didn't sleep. She lay next to Fred, studying his face in the moonlight streaming through the window, wondering if she really knew him at all. The next day, Sonia decided to confront Fred, but every time she tried to bring up Marcus Green, the words couldn't come. It was as if something physically prevented her from speaking about it. She could talk about anything else, the weather, what to have for dinner, her doctor's appointment, but the moment she tried to mention Marcus or the contact, her throat would close up and a different word would come out instead. Fred, I need to talk to you about... She intended to say Marcus, but what came out was what we're having for lunch. Fred looked at her strangely. Are you feeling okay, Treasure? You seem distracted. She tried again. There's something I need to tell you about... She wanted to say the contract, but instead she said my mother coming to visit. This was the curse, Sonia realized with great horror. Whatever deal Fred had made, part of it included keeping her silent. She couldn't warn him, couldn't ask him to break the contract because she literally couldn't speak the word. Desperate, she tried to write it down. She grabbed a piece of paper and started writing, Fred, you made a deal with Marcus Green. But as soon as she finished writing the name, the paper burst into flames in her hands. Sonia yelped and dropped it, watching as it turned to ash before hitting the floor. The ashes then vanished completely, leaving no trace. She tried typing it on her phone, but every single message she attempted to send deleted itself before going through. She tried to draw pictures to communicate through gestures, but nothing worked. The course was airtight. That night, Sonia had the dream again, but this time it was different. The little boy was still there in the field of dead flowers, but now he wasn't alone. There were dozens of women standing behind him, all of them pregnant, all of them with expressions of profound sadness. We all made the same mistake, one of them said. We all trusted the wrong person. Are you all dead? Sonia asked. We are the price that was paid, another woman answered. Just as you will be unless you break the pattern. The little boy stepped forward. You can't tell your husband directly. The cause prevents it, but there's another way. Make him remember on his own. Make him face what he did. How? Sonia pleaded. His conscience knows the truth, even if it is buried deep. Create a crisis. Force him to choose between his desire for the child and his love for you. The choice itself might break the curse. Sonia woke up with a plan forming in her mind. If she couldn't tell Fred about the contract, she would make him confess it himself. Over the next few days, Sonia began to act strangely. She stopped eating, claiming the pregnancy was making her too nauseous. She grew pale and weak. She fainted twice, making sure Fred was there to catch her. I'm taking you to the hospital, Fred insisted after the second fainting spell. No, Sonia said weakly. The doctors can't help me. This isn't a medical problem. Then what is it? Fred demanded, his voice cracking with worry. Sonia looked him directly into his eyes. You tell me, Fred, is there anything you need to confess? Anything you've done that might have consequences she didn't anticipate? For just a moment, she saw guilt flash across his face, but then he shook his head. I don't know what you're talking about. You're not making sense. You need a doctor. He started to reach for his phone, but Sonia grabbed his wrist. With strength she didn't know she had, she held him there and whispered, Marcus Green. The name finally came out. The cause had weakened just enough in that moment of crisis for her to speak those two words. Fred went white as a sheet. Where did you hear that name? From the man himself, Sonia said, her voice still weak but clear. I called him. He told me everything about the contract, about the price, about how he traded my life for this baby. Fred stumbled backward, his face crumbling. I didn't. I thought it was just superstition. I didn't think it was real. But you knew there was a price, Sonia said, sitting up straighter. You knew, and you signed it anyway. When were you going to tell me? Or you were just going to let me die wondering why? No. Fred fell to his knees beside the couch. I didn't believe it would really happen. Marcus said a lot of crazy things, talked about blood oaths and ancient agreements, but I thought it was just some theatrical nonsense, a way to make desperate people feel like they were doing something. I never believed you would actually... He couldn't finish the sentence. Tears streamed down his face. I'm so sorry, Sonia. I was desperate. 10 years of trying, 10 years of my mother's comments and the pitying looks from everyone. I just wanted to make you happy. I wanted to give you a child, but I swear to you, I didn't believe the price was real. I would have never gone through with it if I had known. Sonia wanted to stay angry, wanted to hate him for his betrayal, but looking at his broken expression, she could see the truth, that he had made a terrible mistake in a moment of weakness, not understanding what he was really agreeing to. We have to break the contract, Sonia said. There has to be a way. Fred nodded frantically. I'll call Marcus right now. I'll do whatever it takes. He grabbed his phone with shaking hands and dialed. Marcus answered on the first ring as if he had been waiting. Fred Turner, Marcus said. I wondered when you'd call. Your wife beat you to it, you know. She's got more courage than you do. I want to break the contract, Fred said, his voice firm despite his tears. Tell me what I have to do. It's not that simple, Marcus replied. The contract was sealed with your blood and your signature. Breaking it requires a sacrifice of equal value. Then take my life instead of hers, Fred said immediately. Let Sonia and the baby leave. Take me. That's very noble, Marcus said, and for the first time, his voice held a note of something other than cold amusement. But it's not about whose life he's taking. The contract specifically requires the mother's life force to fuel the child's entry into this world. Substitution isn't possible. Then what can we do? Sonia said, grabbing the phone from Fred. There has to be something. Every contract has loopholes. What are you not telling us? There was a long pause. When Marcus spoke again, his voice was different, quieter, almost sad. You are right. There's one possibility, but it has never worked before. It requires both of you to come to my office and participate in a counter ritual. You each have to offer something of great value, not money or possessions, but something from your soul, your pride, your secrets, your deepest fears, and even then, success isn't guaranteed. When? Fred asked. You're 15 weeks pregnant now, Marcus said to Sonia. The ritual must be performed before you reach 28 weeks. After that, the bond between you and the baby becomes too strong. You will have until the end of your 6th month, not a day longer. We'll be there tomorrow, Sonia said. Send us the address. The next day, Fred and Sonia drove to an old brownstone building in the city's historic district. The address Marcus had sent them led them to a second-floor office with Green Consulting painted on the frosted glass door. Inside, the office looked surprisingly normal. A desk, filing cabinet and a few chairs. Marcus himself was not what Sonia expected. He was a handsome man in his early 40s, dressed in an expensive suit, looking more like a lawyer than whatever dark figure she had imagined. Thank you for coming, Marcus said, gesturing for them to sit. I should explain something before we begin. I'm not evil, despite what you might think. I'm simply bound. 10 years ago, I made my own foolish deal and now I'm trapped in a cycle. I must facilitate this contract or I pay the price myself. That doesn't excuse what you did to us, Sonia said coldly. No, it doesn't, Marcus agreed, which is why I'm willing to help you break it, even though doing so puts me at great risk. If my employers discover that I've helped release you from the contract, there will be consequences for me. Why would you help us then? Fred asked suspiciously.
Marcus smiled sadly, because every contract I facilitate, every traded life for a desperate wish weighs on my soul. I was once a good man, believe it or not, a doctor actually. I made a mistake during a surgery. My patient died, and in my grief and desperation to bring her back, I made a deal. Now I'm trapped in this endless cycle of causing the same kind of pain I once tried so hard to prevent. He pulled out an old leather-bound book and set it on the desk. This contains the counter ritual. It requires 3 participants: the one who made the contract, the one whose life is at stake, and the facilitator. That's you, and me. We must perform it on a night of a new moon, which is fortunately in 2 days' time. What exactly does this ritual involve? Sonia asked. Each one of us must confront our greatest failure and offer it up, Marcus explained. Fred must publicly acknowledge his betrayal and accept all judgment for it. Sonia, you must release your fear and choose to trust and love, even though knowing it might not save you. And I must break my own binding, knowing it will cost me dearly. What will happen to you? Fred asked. I really don't know, Marcus admitted. Perhaps I'll finally be free, or perhaps I'll face whatever punishment I have been avoiding all these years. But either way, I'm tired of being a monster. It's time to end this. They spent the next 2 days preparing. Fred wrote a detailed confession of everything he had done. The visit to Marcus, the contract he had signed, the price he had agreed to without truly believing it. He posted it on social media. He called his mother and told his closest friends. The shame was enormous, but he bore it without complaints. Sonia, meanwhile, worked on releasing her fear. Every time the panic threatened to overwhelm her, she placed her hand on her growing belly and chose to have faith. Faith in Fred's love. Faith in Marcus's desire for redemption. Faith that somehow things would work out. On the night of the new moon, they gathered in Marcus's office. He had drawn strange symbols on the floor in chalk and set up candles at specific points around the room. Once we begin, we cannot stop, Marcus warned. The ritual must be completed or the consequences will be catastrophic for all of us. Are you ready? Fred and Sonia looked at each other and nodded. Marcus began to chant in a language neither of them understood. The candles flickered widely, though there were no breeze. The temperature in the room dropped, and Sonia could see her breath misting in the air. Fred, Marcus commanded, speak your truth. Fred stepped into the circle of symbols. His voice was steady as he confessed everything, not just what he had done, but why. The years of feeling inadequate, the pressure from his family, the desperation to prove himself as a man by having children. He acknowledged that he had put his own needs above Sonia's safety and that he had been selfish and cowardly. As he spoke, the symbols on the floor began to glow with a faint red light. Sonia, Marcus said, release your fear. Sonia stepped forward, her hand still resting on her pregnant belly. I've been afraid my whole life, she said softly. Afraid of not being enough, of failing, of being abandoned. This pregnancy was supposed to be the answer to everything, but instead it became my greatest fear. The thing I wanted most would be the thing that destroyed me. She took a deep breath, but I choose to let go of that fear. Whatever happens here tonight, I choose love over fear. I choose to trust in the possibility of redemption for Fred, for Marcus, and for myself. The red glow intensified, and the symbols began to move, rearranging themselves into a new pattern. And now, Marcus said, his voice shaking, I must offer my own sacrifice. He knelt in the center of the circle. I was Dr. Marcus Green, and I killed a patient through my negligence. Emily Richardson, aged 23. She died on my operating table because I was tired, distracted, and made a critical error. In my guilt and desperation, I made a deal to bring her back. But the price that I had to pay was to facilitate a deal such as mine, trading 10 lives for the one I had taken. Fred and Sonia, you are number 8. Tears streamed down his face. I've been telling myself that I had no choice, that I was trapped. But the truth is, I could have refused from the beginning. I could have accepted my guilt and faced justice like a man. Instead, I damned myself and 8 other innocent people. Tonight, I break that cycle. I refuse to complete the final 2 contracts. Whatever comes, I accept it. The moment he finished speaking, the room exploded with light. Sonia felt something tear away from her, like a splinter being pulled from deep within her flesh. She cried out in pain, and Fred caught her before she fell. The light grew so bright that they had to close their eyes. There was a sound like thunder, or perhaps like chains breaking, and then suddenly everything was silent. When Sonia opened her eyes, the symbols were gone, the candles had blown out, and Marcus was lying on the floor, unconscious but breathing. "Is it over?" Fred whispered. Sonia touched her stomach. The baby kicked, a strong, healthy kick that felt entirely normal. The sense of wrongness, the sense of something dark growing inside her was gone. "I think so," she said. "I think it's really over." Marcus woke up a few minutes later. He looked exhausted, but there was something different about his expression, a lightness that hadn't been there before. "It worked," he said wonderingly. "The curse is broken. You are free." "What about you?" Sonia asked. Marcus stood up slowly. "I don't know yet. I suppose I'll find out soon enough. But whatever happens, thank you for giving me the chance to do one right thing before the end." Few months later, Sonia gave birth to a healthy baby girl. The delivery was normal without complications. Both mother and child were perfectly fine. They named her Hope. Fred proved himself worthy of his second chance. He became a devoted father and husband, never again making decisions without consulting Sonia. The shame of his public confession faded with time, and people gradually forgave them when they saw how completely he had changed. As for Marcus, they heard from him one more time, about a month after Hope was born. He sent a brief email. "I'm leaving the country. The consequences of breaking my contract are catching up with me, but I go willingly, knowing I saved at least one life. Take care of that beautiful baby. She represents everything good that can come from choosing right over easy. M." They never heard from him again. Years later, when Hope was old enough to understand, Sonia and Fred told her the truth about her birth, about the dark contract, the sacrifice required to break it, and the courage it took to choose honesty over secrets. They wanted her to understand that mistakes, even terrible ones, can be redeemed if we're willing to face them with truth and courage. Hope grew up knowing she was loved, knowing her life had been fought for, and understanding the power of choosing light over darkness, and that made all the difference.